Welcome back. Ryan Brown here from J. Ryan Brown Law, and today we are going to talk about the crime of child molestation. We're going to talk about the elements of this crime. That means what the prosecutors must prove that the defendant or the accused did in order to obtain a conviction. We're also going to talk about relevant punishments for a child molestation conviction. This will be a short video. Like I said, we're just going to go through what they must prove, what potential punishments are, and we'll go from there. So, as you can see, we're talking about child molestation. In Georgia, there is child molestation as a crime as well as aggravated child molestation. There is a separate video on aggravated child molestation. The punishments and the elements are different for that crime, so that is worth watching if you are looking for information on that. But today, just child molestation. So let's start. Here in the blue, we have the things the prosecutors must prove that the defendant did. So they must prove all of these things beyond a reasonable doubt in order to obtain a conviction. There are two different ways. So we're going to take these first two and then we'll deal with number three, okay? There are two different ways that someone can commit an act that leads to a child molestation charge. The first one is that they do an immoral or indecent act to a child or in the presence of a child, okay? So I've only written immoral or indecent act here. We're dealing with limited space. That immoral or indecent act must be done to a child or in the presence of a child, someone under the age of 16 here in Georgia. If someone commits an immoral or indecent act to or in the presence of a child, it must be done with the intention. So that means the defendant must be doing this immoral act or doing this indecent act to a child or in the presence of a child for the purpose, with the intent to arouse or satisfy that person's sexual desires or the sexual desires of the child. Okay? So that's the first way. You might see an indictment that says, so-and-so did, in the state of Georgia, in the county of Fulton, commit an immoral or indecent act by touching the buttocks of said child with the intention to arouse the sexual desires of the accused or of the child. That is one way you could see child molestation charged. So let's skip down to two. This one is a good bit different from number one. It deals with the transmission of images over an electronic device to a child typically. So the stereotypical or the normal type of action you're going to see prosecuted under this section is going to be a situation where someone sends a dirty text message to a child. Okay, so if someone sends a picture of their genitalia to a child, to an underage child, that is, a pornographic picture of an adult, so it's not child pornography, but because it is sent to that child, as long as it's done with the intent to arouse or satisfy the sexual desires of the person sending it, who would be the defendant, or to the child, it's child molestation. So if an adult sends a nudie picture to a child intending to arouse their sexual desires, or in that situation likely to try and arouse the sexual desires of the child, then that is sufficient to be the basis of a child molestation charge. Now let's go on into the red, and we're going to talk about punishments for child molestation as a crime. You'll see here, my handwriting is kind of bad, but for the first conviction, you're looking at a range of punishment in Georgia from 5 years to 20 years imprisonment. Okay, there are some unique rules for child molestation and some other sex crimes about probation, deviations from these. But in general, as a general rule, and everything in the law always has exceptions, the range of punishment on a child molestation conviction is 5 years to 20 years. Now, if someone is convicted for a second time in their life of child molestation in Georgia, the punishment goes up. The minimum doubles from 5 to 10, and the maximum goes up by 50%, so from 20 to 30. So for a second, we'll get to this in a second. So for a second conviction, 10 to 30, or the prosecutor can seek life imprisonment, okay? Which is looking at no parole eligibility for 30 years or so. Okay. Finally, under punishment, MISD, that's short for misdemeanor, okay? There is a situation where someone charged with a child molestation case can be alleged in a way that makes it a misdemeanor. It's very specific. The defendant, meaning the person accused of child molestation, must be 18 years old or younger for this to even come into consideration, okay? Additionally, the victim, must be 14 years old or 15 years old, okay? So we've got a defendant who is 18 or younger, a victim who is 14 or 15. Additionally, the two must be within 4 years of one another in age. If that is the case, it is still a crime, it is still child molestation, but you are dealing with a misdemeanor, okay? Obviously, here in the felony situation, you're going to be dealing with sex offender registration requirements as well upon a conviction. That is for a separate video. In the meantime, I'm Ryan Brown, J. Ryan Brown Law, servicing all of the state of Georgia. You call us or text us, 470-635-1725. Stay safe.